Ah, but Jesus, there you are. And as per usual, we need some more light on. Would you like to put that on, please? I'll get it for you if that's so. Right. Let's put that on there. And then we put that up. Oh, look at my shiny dome.
Gnome.
Gnome. Okay. Right.
Looks very high today, doesn't it?
It's high go. Ah, there he is. And oh, mate.
No, I've got.
His end fell off.
His end fell off.
Don't know what happened there. Anyway, as I say, hi guys, and welcome back to your usual Friday night nonsense. That is the Dark Mirror Show. I'm actually right in the middle of charging batteries and getting things ready because there's an investigation tomorrow night. There'll be bits of that coming up. That's all I'll say. Oh, he's back again with a belch. Or
That was a.
what's going on?
I can't. My phone doesn't want to be nice, and my iPad doesn't want to go on StreamYard whatsoever. So, which has messed me up because I was going to obviously enter the room on my iPad, and I've got all the windows open that I need.
Yeah.
For this.
Well, just do what I do. I mean, I've always got my tablet in. I've always got it in my hand. Oof. I've always got my tablet here because that's where my info is.
Yeah, well, I had two things up that I was quite out of that list that you gave me.
Yeah.
And the last one that I looked at, I found quite interesting because I've been there myself, and the Epping Forest one.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I've taken teams through Epping Forest.
Yeah, and I took a coach load of people down to a pub on the outskirts of there.
Yeah.
And I took a walk in the woods there, and I took some really bizarre photos. And it was basically a deer that morphed into a human.
Are you friends with Hearn the Hunter?
No.
Do you have him on Facebook?
No, I think I might have to try and add him.
You want the hard pillar? This one?
It's a really bizarre place. So I was sort of like, I had a page open for that, and then I had a page open for our first one that you sent me.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, with the phone not wanting to play properly, it sort of messed everything up. But I've now got it all sorted on the iPad.
Right.
It's just how long my phone will last.
All right, no problem, mate. Well, I know. Well, let's start with Epping Forest. So we were going to do Victorians, but to be honest, you can't really do the Victorians without talking about London. So we will include stuff that, well, most of it happened in London anyway, but Epping Forest as well. And Epping Forest, I've taken teams around there, and I'm not going to say where it is, but there's one particular spot that is, how can I put it, is used as a drop-off point for certain fraternities of alternative societies.
Yes.
No. It's where.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I thought you were about
and that's rather haunted rather well. There's a lot of eerie stuff goes on around there. And actually, one of the places that I used to take the teams to is near the little cafe down there, the little hut, tea hut it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, the triangle bit just up from the tea hut is where I can't remember who the killer was, but one of the mobsters killed a woman in her car parked up there and shot her up, with a gun and slashed her up, and she was found there in a car about 3 days later, I think it was, and buried out on the grounds there where the trees are was a lot of the old gangland drop-off points. And some of those places in Epping Forest are still used as drop-off points now, but we just won't mention where they are.
Yes.
Oh, and one of the nights that I took a team down there, we got stopped by the forestry constable.
Yeah.
He stopped us because he knows me. He knows we've got the license for the place, and he's like, "Be careful tonight. Why? There's an escaped prisoner from whatever mental wing it was, and this was middle of November, if I remember rightly. Kerry was with us, Kerry Greenaway. No, and he didn't have shoes on, and this nut job's out in the middle of Epping Forest, go and whatever else he was doing, no shoes on, middle of November, and we're like,
very clever.
We literally just like, fuck it, let's do it anyway. So we just carried on going, But that was very. I must admit, I love your pussy, mate. You need a trim.
Oh,
Yeah, pussy was that?
This is Blossom. This is would have been feral cat.
Ah, right, yes. Very feral. I can see. Hello, Blossom.
She was the one that was here when we first moved in, and she was literally on the verge of being wild.
Yeah.
And now she's a daddy's cat.
That's like Lila, wasn't it?
I don't want your bum in my face, though.
They like doing that, don't they? They're like, especially when you're on camera, like either the dogs will fart or the cat will go, "Do you not have that?"
They're like, "Hello, daddy. Here's a bum in your face."
Dear,
Right.
dear. Well, I'm hoping to be down and see you next month. Is it?
Fortnight.
Fortnight. That's it. In a fortnight's time.
Indeedy.
So I should look forward to that. So yes, I'm right in the middle of charging things for tomorrow night.
Outside.
It's not for us.
I'm saying.
Talk to her. Not for us.
There's a car honking outside.
There you go. Not for us. So yeah, I thought tonight, because we said Victorians, and that includes London. And although one of the things is, when you mention it, it just comes to mind with full-on Gothic. It was the 60s and 70s, I think, this particular phenomenon was seen.
Well, that's not Victorian, then, is it?
No, but where it's seen is all Gothic.
Well, it's different.
So
yeah, which obviously in the Victorian era, it was a very Gothic sort of period, wasn't it?
And it was predominant for all their books, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so Arthur Conan Doyle was a member of the Ghost Hunting Society, wasn't he?
Yep.
So, yeah. So what shall we start? What do you want? You can start. What do you want to start with?
Well, I'm on Epping Forest.
All right.
At the moment.
Let's start with the very last one.
And it's based, I would say it's based loosely on what they classed as an urban legend now.
The Silent Pool.
Obviously, we know about urban legends is where an incident happens over a period of time. The story gets played out so many times from one person to the other, and just like Chinese whispers, it mutates into something else. The story spreads so far and wide that it then becomes a myth or an urban legend.
Well, you know yourself, in the paranormal world, when we get given a place that we're like really hyped up, let's go and investigate, because it's all this, that, and the other. And when you get there, you're like, oh.
Hello, Pete.
Hi, Pete.
Yeah. Sometimes it can end up in a sort of a bit of an anticlimax. You hear so much about it, and then when you get there, not much happens. You think, oh, that's a bit of a letdown. But then when you compare it to other people, other people will turn around and say, well, when I was there, it was really, really active.
It's like all the people on TV, isn't it? When you see them going to their investigations, and strangely enough, something happens with every single bloody investigation. Isn't that weird?
When you went to the chocolate factory,
Yeah. There's so many places. Well, you've been at the same thing, isn't it? We've investigated the same place, haven't we? And you've probably had different experiences to me, but most of the places that I've gone to, it's been the most active place I went to was is it Essex Life Farm Centre?
Essex Life Farm Centre. That's not at where is it? Near Braintree.
It'll be in Essex, yes. I just realised that's my T-shirt. When the hell did you get that? I was in the drawer.
I'm trying to think of the place now, but there's only one. There's actually only this place now is only one team that actually investigates there. No other teams are allowed to go there.
Oh, how come?
they apparently this team that goes there have got license just to do there. They don't do anywhere else. They do there like once or twice a month, and no other teams are allowed to go there. It's solely for them only. Temple Barnes.
Yeah, and it's got the beehive place on it and original
Yeah.
buildings, and there's I loved it there. That was so active, and that's
Yeah,
the only place I've been where it's been boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a very active place, but other teams are not allowed to investigate there apparently now. I tried ringing them last year to see if we could hold an event there, and they said no, we're solely for this other team, and they wouldn't even name the other team. So the only way to investigate there is to book through them, which I think is a bit harsh, because if you look at the likes of Harwich Redoubt Fort,
yeah,
you know, it is booked out most weekends.
Yeah,
and they don't care what team investigate there as long as they pay what the rate is. They're not bothered. And I mean, I was up there with the EAPI team on Saturday, and yet again, you know, I was chatting with Sharon Bradfield for a little while, one of the owners, and then I went off out on my own, and I had a few really weird experiences that would sort of worry a lot of people. And it happened twice on two separate occasions, about 2 hours apart from each other. And it was an experience that I'd never had there before, and I must have investigated there about 10 times.
Show me on this doll where they touched you.
Where they touched me?
You said you had an experience you wouldn't like other people to have.
It wasn't that. There was a... you know, like when someone's got a really bad chesty cold, and they've got that really strong wheezing sound.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was right behind me.
That's what we've got right now.
But it was really weird, because I was in this room on my own. There was loads of old farm machinery all around me, and I could hear this really sort of clotted breath behind me. And it was almost like they were gargling, and you could hear it, the sort of the cackle and the crackling as it was breathing out, as it was exhaling, and then there was the gap of it inhaling and then breathing out again. And I must have stood there for about 2 minutes before it started to freak me out a little bit too much.
Right.
So I thought, right, I'll walk out and I'll come back in an hour or so's time, see whether it does it again. And sure enough, I walked back in there, and to start off with, I didn't hear it. And then as I took a couple more steps into the middle of the room, I then heard it, and I could not pinpoint where it was coming from.
Was that near the armory, near the powder room?
It was next to the cells.
Yeah, because
obviously I've had a lot of experiences with the cells. So as you face the cell door, it was to the left of the cell. Yeah. Franz the mannequin dummy.
Oh God, yeah, and then you got all the original graffiti in there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
I had the mannequin dummy thrown at me.
Oh really?
Yeah, which was enough to actually make the other investigator that was with me, she quit the paranormal as a result.
See,
It scared her that much that she said, I can't do this no more, and she left. It took a couple of years to do it, but she eventually made the decision that after that she wasn't into doing it anymore.
You know yourself, if you're a true paranormal investigator, things like that don't bother you. You're just like, yes, do it again.
Well, the thing was, I was holding the body of the dummy, and the head rolled off. The head fell off, and I was playing football with it on the floor.
I'll just explain to the ones in the chat room. Hi, Andy, Pete, everyone. The Harwich Redoubt Fort is an old fort down on the estuary, isn't it?
It's up at the North Essex Suffolk border.
Yeah, it's right on an inlet, though, isn't it?
Yes, it's the River Stour, is it? Oh well, it's between it's Harwich and Felixstowe. It's the inlet between Harwich and Felixstowe.
That's right, and it's a totally round fort, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember rightly.
Yes,
And in one of
it's
the-
just a big donut.
And in one of the cells that's there, because it was actually used as holding cells for German prisoners of war and Italian ones, if I remember right, and British ones for naughty boys during
Yes.
the war. And it's still on the walls in one of the cells. It's the original graffiti from all these guys that are in there. And they have a dummy in there of one of the prisoners of war, don't they?
Yes,
And,
in
Wayne
the
was
first
just
two
saying-
cells.
Yeah, and Wayne was just saying he had the dummy thrown at him.
Yeah, 12 foot across the room, about 3 foot off the ground.
What did you do to piss off the resident ghost?
Well, to be honest, it was getting a bit boring. So I sort of accidentally said, "Das Luftwaffe ist kaputt," and it was a couple of minutes. It was a couple of minutes after that the mannequin flew across the room at me. And
So,
oddly
do you think
enough,
it was a German spirit?
the mannequin was dressed up as a German pilot.
Do me
And
a
it was
favour,
North-
when you go in there next time, because you're obviously going to go again.
Yeah.
Do me a favour, go in there. If it's quiet and nothing's happening, please just turn around and say, "Du bist eine Spanstucker." Just say that for me, please, and see what happens.
Well, I have called him a Shizer cop a couple of times as well. So it does have a habit of sort of. I've named him Klaus.
And it kicks it off.
That was the name we seem to be getting every time we go in there. Even individual groups of guests that have gone in there have all come out with Klaus.
Yeah, sure we did. So I'm looking for my drink.
Whether it's a that popular a German name or what, I don't know. But everybody that I've been in there with seems to come out with Klaus before it's even mentioned. So, so obviously, all we do is say something to him like "Das Luftwaffe ist kaputt," and it seems to sort of boost the spirit a little bit. But it was the whole scenario itself. We'd been in there 5 minutes, and I'd said, there's nothing happening. It's quite boring. And so I said, "Das Luftwaffe ist kaputt," and it must have been a couple more minutes later. Claire, who I was with, said, "Nothing. That mannequin's it's moving." And we had a trigger object on the bed, and it was one of those ones with the sensor alarm in it, with the red lights in each corner.
Yeah.
And every time the red light flashed, she said, every time that's flashing, I can see that dummy moving. Well, it was propped up at an angle on the wall. And there was no way it physically could have toppled forward. No way. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, nah.
Yeah, because it's quite heavy, isn't it?
They're not lightweight.
Huh.
And as it's at an angle at the wall, the weight of it should have kept it at that wall.
Yeah.
And I'd said, no, I said that it's not moving, but something's going to happen because I can feel it's in the atmosphere. Something's going to happen. And as I said that, the dummy came flying at me. And I went, oh shit, grabbed it. Poor Claire, she's in the opposite end of the room from it. She went, oh, F that, I'm off. And boom, she was gone, left me in there on my own. I'm peeing myself laughing, playing football with the head, and another team that was in the other cell, they were videoing dowsing rods.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That ended up on YouTube, and they actually stood there and said, if there are anybody in these cells with us, can you please cross the rods over? And as the rods started crossing, you hear Claire say, F that, I'm off. So, of course, they come to investigate to see what's going on.
As you do, and then they find young Wayne here playing football with somebody's head.
Yeah, and after that, they've since tied him to the wall with wire, so he can't do it again. So it must have happened more than once.
Yeah, if I remember rightly, when we were there, it happened to somebody the previous week or month, something. It was quite recently.
That was probably my incident. It seems
I'm
to have
sure
done its
that
round
has
with the
to
Harwich
happen.
Society.
And it's like another one I like around there is the Coalhouse Fort.
Yeah, they just seem to be a bit restrictive now, don't they? Coalhouse Fort.
Is it?
And you have Fort Landguard on the other side of Felixstowe.
I've not been there. Not been to that one.
Fort Landguard apparently is quite expensive, but it's a very good location.
Okay.
But,
Worth mentioning.
anyway.
Shall we get back? You were talking about Epping.
Yes, Epping Forest. Right. Obviously, it's become an urban legend. Obviously, we know where Epping Forest, North London, into Essex itself. It's about 2.4. I think it's about 2.4 hectares big, which is about 19 kilometres long.
Yeah.
And 4 kilometres wide, I think it is, from east to west. And there's over 100 lakes and ponds within the forest, and they vary in size and age. So some have been there for hundreds of years, and others are sort of more recent. But there is only one, and it goes by two names, and it's either the killer pool or the suicide pool. The story goes that 300 years ago, a young couple went on a walk in Epping Forest, and after a while they noticed that they were being followed by someone, and they decided to confront them. It turned out to be the father of the girl, who disagreed with their relationship, and the father killed his daughter and dumped her in one of the nearby pools, also called a pond. And the boyfriend couldn't handle the fact that he was now on his own, and he committed suicide at the same spot. Shortly after, strange things started to happen. The waters of the pond transformed into an impenetrable black colour, and wildlife began to die around the edges, so it became a dead pool as such.
That's right.
And nothing would grow around it. We've got a similar pond up here in just down the road in Manningtree. They can't put any livestock or fish in there. No birds will go in there. There's no reeds or anything. The locals all blame a horse and cart, and the coach driver had actually driven. Something had spooked the horses, and the coach and the wagon and everything just went into this pond, and everything died in it. So obviously, this is the same sort of thing that's happened with this pool. And then bodies started to appear.
That's right.
In 1887, both a woman killed herself at the pool, and not much later, a young servant named Emma Morgan killed both herself and her child there. Over the years, many people have either died by suicide or murder in Epping Forest, and it's even said that the pond itself calls people to the edges and drives them to kill themselves. So obviously, the superstition has always been there, and obviously for 300 years since that first murder and suicide, the word has got around basically the local area, and that's where the Chinese whispers has come in, and has eventually turned it into an urban legend. And someone actually did an article that ended up in the East London and West Essex Guardian on the 27th of December 2014, saying that there was another pond in that area that had similar traits, but no one's been able to find it.
I was going to say, interestingly enough, pretty much every county has got its pool like that. But I can remember another lifetime ago, years ago, there's a place in Surrey near Guildford, and it's called the Silent Pool. I've been there, and it's one of those. The waters are crystal clear, and you can see all the weeds underneath and that. And as it gets further out, it gets darker and darker and darker, and it's black.
Yep.
And the legend there was that one of King Arthur's, it was one of his residences there. One of his maids was bathing there, and he came up on his horse and basically scared the living crap out of her, and she drowned. And ever since then, that's turned into the same creepypasta of every now and again the suicide victim will turn up, and it calls to people, like the forest in Japan, it calls to people, and they go there to commit suicide and stuff. And like I say, I've been there myself, and it is the only way I can describe standing at this pool, and you can get there, you can park beside it and go and walk around it and everything and have a look at the pool. Do you remember when we had that total eclipse back in 2000 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Well, did you stand out the back when the eclipse was going on and all the birds had stopped and there was no noise?
Yeah, because they all thought it was bedtime.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's just like that when you go to this silent pool. You'll go there and you do get a bloody creepy feeling. And there's no
Yeah.
noise, no animals, no birds, and it is a place that says to you, get out.
Yeah.
You know? And I
But,
think one day I might go back there and have a look.
Yeah, I mean, they say now that there is, I wouldn't say it's a rule as such, but it's an unspoken of rule where do not go swimming in Epping Forest.
Say again?
Don't go swimming.
Apparently, there is a rule: you do not go swimming in Epping Forest.
Yeah, not if you want to live.
Because apparently they cannot find, they do not know which pool it is. Apparently in 1959, when the actual tale of the pool was sort of had a bit of a resurgence and things were starting to sort of pick up a bit, they tried to use or they tried to get a request of information from Essex countryside to actually request the information for the whereabouts, but apparently they did a survey and they could not find the pool that apparently this happened. So they've gone by basic reports from the police records of people that had committed suicide in the area, and even going by the reports, they could not pinpoint where this particular pond was that people had either got killed or committed suicide in.
Very
So
strange.
it's and obviously that goes right the way back to the 1800s.
Do you know, that reminds me of a place. There's a, I can't remember which woods it is, but there's one that's got a witch's hut in the middle of it, and the witch's hut goes back to, I think, the turn of the century or late 1800s. It's near what was a prison. The prison's now derelict, but it used to be a women's prison there now.
Trying to think, there's part of Sherwood Forest is a bit like that in Nottingham.
No, it wasn't there. It was down your way. But I remember when we went there, and this is years back. This is when I could walk bloody miles and stuff. But there was we knew exactly where the witch's hut was. We had all the coordinates on it. We had it on a GPS, and literally every time. And there were forest watchers in the woods, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Guardians, got forest guardians in there. You just knew there were. You could feel it, and forest guardians, elementals from the DOT who are there to look after certain bits. Now, the medium that we had with us, in fact, it was Kerry. She picked up on them and she said they're allowing us in, but just watch what you're doing. And every time we found about 3 or 4 partially built witches' huts, the little ones with the bits of wood inside, the round ones.
Yeah.
We found some, and every time we zeroed in on the big one, and we had the GPS and we had it all set up, and it was going there, we'd walk there, and it'd go, no, it's over there. And you'd go over there, and you look at it again, and go, no, it's up there. And it was sending us all round in a bloody circle and would not let you get near it.
Right. Just to jump in on that and sort of go backwards a bit, I've just found an article that was printed on the 12th of May this year. And apparently the killer pond is at the end of the London Underground Central line.
Really?
Someone has found it. The article is very similar to the research that I'd found, but it also states on here that a number of people committed suicide by walking into the 10-foot deep water. How do they know it's 10 foot deep if they don't know where it is?
Yeah.
So that's food for thought. So, for all these years they're saying that no one's found it, but now they're saying it's the end of according to My London website, it's at the end of London Underground Central line, and he's 10 foot deep.
Well, we might be able to come back with some information on that in the next couple of weeks.
He'll tell you it's a tourist trap.
Yeah, because her other half's dad is a manager for TfL Underground. So we could just ask him.
I'll ask him, but I'm telling you now, you don't know where it is, and yet there's suicide victims that have been found.
The end of the central line, yeah.
And they don't know where it is, but it's 10 foot deep.
Yeah, it's all a load of rubbish. It's and that website you've spoken about, I've looked at a lot of their things as well, and then compared it with, when I do my research, I'll go in and compare this.
Yeah.
And a lot of their stuff has comments from other people saying, do you know what real Londoners are going now, mate? So take it with a pinch of
But I
salt.
will ask.
Yeah.
I'll find out for you.
Well, this is what I mean. You know, how can it make much sense? You know, it's at the end of the central line. It's 10 foot deep, but nobody else has been able to actually pinpoint where it is. So you know, but obviously, it wouldn't be surprising if there is somewhere within Epping Forest that has got something there, simply because you got the likes of Dick Turpin was around there. I almost said Dick Turnip for some reason. I don't know why.
I have a question.
Yours?
Could you still call it suicide if it's people like what you said? They didn't mean to do it. Is it still suicide? Because you just said that
if they've killed themselves, yes.
But that thing that you read out says people have committed suicide.
Yeah, but if it's 10 foot water and they've
accidentally
accidentally walked into the water, as soon as I felt my feet going back, I'd be like, oh, bugger, turn around and go back. I wouldn't go, oh, do you know what?
Yeah.
If you're
Do you know what? I think I'll carry on.
Yeah.
If you're leaning into your steps, you're going to go straight in, aren't you? Is it a straight 10-foot drop?
I reckon.
Or is it?
If they walked in, it's going to have gone like that. So they'd be walking.
I would say at its deepest, it's 10 foot. I wouldn't have thought it was a straight 10-foot drop.
Okay, because that confused me completely. But if people are walking into shallow water and then just keep going, then I understand.
Mind you, look at a lot of the people that we see about these days with the COVID stuff going on. I can see there are a lot of genuinely stupid people out there. So
yeah,
you know.
but I mean, I think in general, the Forestry Commission, if they come across a pond that would have a 10-foot drop straight away from the edge, they'd put a fence around it. You certainly wouldn't be able to get anywhere near the water if it had a 10-foot drop straight off in it.
Shall we move on to something Gothic-y, and then we can go on to the Victorian stuff? So I was thinking the Highgate Vampire.
Lovely.
See, I mean, stuff I've got here is the first sighting was in 1969, but if I remember rightly,
that's when man first set foot on the moon.
I just looked at it because it said 69 and it caught my attention. If I remember rightly, when I've researched this previously, there have been sightings of this description since the earlier part of the, I think it was 18th century, or whenever that bit was opened up, and they used to go there. But it's not just 69. I'm sure there are sightings way back for it. But anyway, and it got in the papers straight away, and it caught the public attention. And there was a sighting of a spooky grey figure, which obviously can't have been anything other than a vampire. Locals were soon seen marching on the cemetery. Oh Jesus! Some armed with crucifixes and wooden stakes. To be fair, it's London, and in the hope of killing it. And oh God, the furor only died down after a man was arrested for consecrating graves. Does that surely it'd be desecrating graves? Consecrating graves is going around going, oh, on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sprinkling water on it.
Well, it could be the other way, couldn't it?
Yeah.
You'd be consecrating a grave if you destroy it, damage it.
That's desecrating.
Is it?
Yeah.
Consecrating
is
right.
Desecrating is.
Yeah. If it's a cemetery that is for one particular denomination of religion, and he comes in from an opposite religion,
right,
and starts doing his bit of doodah whatnot, he's consecrating it.
There was a big I can remember every now and again you get a big furor about the Highgate Vampire, and you'll see a TV show come up, normally on Channel 4, of all these nutters that live in their mum's attics, and then they come out dressed up in their finest Victorian Gothic velveteen suits, and they leap around at the Highgate Cemetery on the bit they're allowed in, going, hi, vampire hunting. And you just look at them and go, really? Was it real? Something was seen down there. But
no, I mean, is that what you
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with cosplay, okay?
No, I've done cosplay. I've dressed up as Shepard from Mass Effect. Yeah. But
I like cosplay, but I can't do it this year.
You can't do cosplay at the moment unless you went as a shoplifter who lifted a turkey.
I could do like an alien chest burster.
Well, they don't want to be near me this year. I'm Pennywise the Clown this year.
Oh, you can stay over there. Uh,
And I'll be wandering around the street going, "Hey kid, you want a balloon?"
No, don't go near the man, darling.
But I mean, the Highgate Cemetery itself opened in 1839, so
there you go.
it opened in Victorian, so in Victorian times, the West Cemetery side of it, and that was dedicated to St James.
So
it opened 3 years after the Spring Hill Jack was seen. So maybe that grey figure was just someone.
It could have been Spring Hill Jack that was seen. Which brings us neatly on to Spring Hill Jack.
In 1837.
I do think that the sightings down throughout the years at Highgate, I just, the odd, I don't mean paranormal investigators, but the oddballs that you get down there going, I'm going to lick the stones, So, but I do think that, sorry, I didn't mean to make you laugh when you're drinking, but I do think that the earliest ones are possibly sightings of misseen sightings of Spring Hill Jack.
Well, it's quite possible. I mean, the first, the problem is Spring Hill Jack is based around a lot of other sightings of various other things as well. Because you go back into the early 1800s, so you got 1803 and 1804, you had the Hammersmith ghost.
Yeah.
And a lot of people wonder whether that has actually sort of been the birth of the legend of Spring Hill Jack, even though the first reported sighting of him was in 1837.
I think Spring Hill Jack was possibly. Hi, Jackie. I think Spring Hill Jack. I think it was a real. I don't think it was an entity as such, but I think. Is that a Greg's cup? I don't know. Ask him.
Yeah, is that a Greg's cup?
I don't want to interrupt, but I just ripped the bedroom door handle off the door button is shut.
You don't know your own strength, woman. No wonder he walks with a limp sometimes.
So in other words, you shut us out of the bedroom.
I went to shut the door handle come off and in there.
Big flathead screwdriver in the lock. Open it.
Well, I can wait 20 minutes. I'll sort it. Don't worry. Screwdriver and that will be sorted. No problems.
I literally pulled it shut as it just went.
Okay. I need a studio.
Taylor asked if that was the Greg's cup you had.
I think it is a Greg's cup.
I know my Greg's when I see it.
We've got a Greg's literally over the road. Yeah,
See, this is where we digress. You see, we start off doing one thing and then we just go off on a tangent and end up talking about other things. So,
that's what the show is famous for.
Makes it a good live feed.
Yeah, you're live. You just told everybody and everybody who's going to be watching on YouTube that you ripped the bedroom door handle off. And I said, no wonder he walks with a limp sometimes.
Dear. I mean, the Hammersmith ghost was 1803 and 1804, and then there was a gap until 1824. So there was the best part of a 20-year gap between sightings. So it is possible that the 1837 sighting of Spring Hill Jack could also be in relation to the Hammersmith ghost.
Yeah, you're right, Andy.
So, I mean, are these linked? Because Spring Hill Jack wasn't just seen, apparently, in London. He was also spotted in the Midlands and Liverpool.
That's right. That's right. No, he wasn't in America. But the thing that got me is a lot of the sightings, especially the London ones, described him as wearing what was then a Bobby's outfit or their version of the Copper's outfit with the helmet and the cape and everything. But they kept saying there was like clankings and weird squeaking from a contraption he was wearing. One gave off sparks. Yeah, one gave off sparks when you've seen it, it shoot out sparks and stuff. And I think the others, and one, he was known for going boing. I'm wondering if it was just some Victorian Wally who had built something like, those kangaroo stilt things you can wear these days and go boing, boing. Oh my God, look at this.
Springs.
Yeah. I'm wondering if some just loving the dog. I wonder what that was about. Hello, that's Ghost. Yeah.
But I mean, there's also another one as well. Was that Springer Hell Jack actually gave out a blue, like a blue gas flame.
Dodgy curry.
So, but that very dodgy curry if it came out of his mouth. So I mean, it's. I mean, a lot of it has been put down as hoax.
I think it was human and not.
Yeah, and this hoax. I mean, when you look into it, and it gets categorized into groups, it comes up as a hoax, which has then created mass hysteria, and because of the mass hysteria and Chinese whispers again, it turns into a demon or a phantom and becomes an urban legend, which is therefore since then has been written about in a number of literature.
Well, it's like the Mothman, isn't it? When that started, Mothman started being seen all up and down the USA, and then was seen over here in a few counties as well. So and around the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, according to the lady that saw him, that Mary Stevens, you know, so apparently he looked like a gentleman to start off with, and then all of a sudden he changed. He leapt out from a dark alley. I'd be a bit worried. But apparently he immobilized her with a tight grip of his arms. He began to kiss her face while ripping at her clothes and touching her flesh with his claws, which were, according to her, deposition, I don't know, but that cold and clammy with those of a corpse. In a panic, the girl screamed, making the attacker quickly flee from the scene. The commotion brought several residents who immediately launched a search for the aggressor, but he could not be found. So he's obviously scarpered really sort of pretty quick.
Yeah.
The next day, the leaping character is said to have chosen a very different victim near Mary Stevens' home. And the later reports would be that he jumped in the way of a passing carriage, causing the coachman to lose control, crash, and severely injure himself. Several witnesses claim that he escaped by jumping over a 9-foot-high wall while cackling with a high-pitched, ringing laughter. And gradually the news of the strange character had spread.
When he caused the crash with the carriage, he was supposed to have been breathing fire as well.
Yes. I have seen that on a different bit of research I was looking at, that he was breathing this blue flame. Again, that could be similar to, as you said, about the contraptions and the clang that people heard. Could have been the contraptions he was using to create that image and the ability to be able to spring up 9-foot walls.
That's right. And yes, Andy, he did. On one occasion, he was chased over the rooftops. Not very big rooftops, but over some rooftops. I think because he was wearing a pseudo policeman's outfit with the helmet, the helmet's, if he's going to get knocked on the head from a truncheon, it ain't going to bother him. But I think because a lot of reports said when he jumped, his cloak flew out and it was really big. So I'm thinking contraptions, lots of things strapped to him to breathe out for, supposed blue flame. So he's got gas cylinder under there, and he's got some contraption to make him jump a lot higher. I just reckon it was somebody being daft. Obviously, ripping some woman's clothes off and having because other reports said he had metallic claws. So whatever this guy's doing to get his jollies, I think it's human, and I think he's got contraptions underneath a huge cloak which he's using to hide it.
Yeah, I mean, even the Lord Mayor of London at the time had said that there's been a lot of great exaggerations have been made that were quite impossible for someone at that time to be able to do that sort of thing. Yeah. But the weird part is he's been seen in numerous occasions and numerous places, very similar to, like we said the other week about Mothman. Yeah. He was also seen down in Brighton, apparently, where he appeared to a gardener.
Well, Brighton, I mean, if he's going to go down there and try and rip at people's breasts, he's going to get a shock, I tell you. What? What do you want? He's kicking. Sorry, I'm kicking, not mad.
Yeah, apparently apparently he appeared to a gardener in the shape of a bear or some other four-footed animal. Having attracted the gardener's attention by a growl, it then climbed the garden wall and ran along it on all fours before jumping down and chasing the gardener for some time. After terrifying the gardener, the apparition scaled the wall and made its exit.
See,
So,
I mean, I know. I mean, I know a lot about certain martial arts, and I know back in the days, and I'm talking a couple of 100 years ago, ninjutsu, they used to wear climbing claws, and if it was soft mortar and stuff, they could go up a wall.
Yeah.
If you've got a couple of high tensile springs on your leg, and you're going boing like Zed Zebedee, and you're going boing up a wall, and you've got these claws there, you can
Yeah.
be up at your thumb. Hi,
I'm
Helen.
just- I'm just looking at this now, actually, and it seems to me that Spring Hill Jack is sort of like outlived himself.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this now, and I'm saying that seeing here that Spring Hill Jack actually managed to sort of make an appearance in the winter of 1879.
Wait,
That's nearly 40 years.
Wait.
That's a 40-year gap.
So
Isn't it
That's
1879.
roughly a 40-year gap from
Yeah.
the Brighton incident. Is it that one? 1872, 1877. Lord Ernest Hamilton's 1922 memoir, 40 Years On, mentions the Aldershot appearances of Spring Hill Jack.
Aldershot? That's a strange place for him to be.
Says that it occurred in the winter of 1879 after his regiment, the 60th Rifles, had moved to Aldershot, and that similar appearances had occurred when the regiment was barracked at Colchester in the winter of 1878.
Maybe
Now, I
that's
never
where he
realised
was.
Spring Hill Jack was here.
Ah,
I've lived in Colchester for 46 years, and I never realised Spring Hill Jack had been here.
I think a lot of those are what do you call it? Copycats.
Yeah, it could be follow-ons. It says here he adds the panic that became so great at Aldershot that sentries were issued ammunition in order to shoot the Night Terror on sight, following which the appearances ceased. Hamilton thought the appearances were actually pranks carried out by one of his fellow officers, a Lieutenant Alfrey. And I personally think that's probably right.
I was going to say, officers' mess. Yes, we are a bit.
You give the orders to have sentries with a round in the chamber. I think that would be enough to stop anybody from doing it. But again, there's a record in Lincolnshire in 1877.
Yeah.
Then in Liverpool.
See that? No, that's he couldn't have been seen in Liverpool because they'd have had him up on bricks and nicked his metal.
And apparently it was in Everton that he was spotted around 1888.
Nicknamed the Peckham Ghost. Thank you, Andy.
But he was also called the Bogeyman for some reason.
Oh God, I remember watching that as a kid. Fungus the Bogeyman. I had the book. I loved it.
I read the books.
Did you know? Sorry, thinking. Just whilst I remember, there was one I forgot to talk about or put on the list. Hackney Marshes, 1984, I think it was, or possibly 1980, 80 something. There's supposed to be a werewolf or something there, and it was seen by two teenage girls who reported it. Never been seen since. Wasn't seen before.
Was it you?
It wasn't.
In 1980, I would have been 8 years old.
It wasn't flying above a church, was it?
Woo! Yeah,
Oh,
apparently
look,
it's seen by two teenage girls.
It's the owl man that looks like a wolf.
Yeah, definitely.
But so I mean, according to a lot of the theories behind it, they reckon that this is where parents would scare their children that behaved badly. That if they didn't behave good, that the bogeyman or Spring-Heeled Jack would come and take them away.
Well, I mean, funnily enough, it leads on to one I was going to talk about next week, which I'll glance briefly on, and that was the Devil's Footprints. Now, if you've got a contraption that can make you jump that high, and you can walk across roofs, I think that gives rise to the Devil's Footprints, because they went on for, I think it was 3 miles they went on for. But
Something
I'll
like
talk
that.
talk about it more in depth next week. But that was a Victorian one as well. But I was going to say, Terry in the chat room said, "Sounds like soldiers fun, betting in the mess." So I strongly suspect they're like, "Can we scare the shite out of those guys?" Yeah. I've done it myself. I was stag duty and I had an officer come up and go, "Shh," because he wanted to scare the crap out of somebody else, you know.
Yeah, and I think after the last report on here, which was the one in Everton, 1904 was the last known report in William Henry Street.
So from 1937 to 1904.
70 something.
So that's
it's a lot of years.
64, 65, 67, 68 years.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd be quite so spring-heeled Jack by that time.
No. Be rusty-heeled Jack.
Well, I think he'd be Jack Daniels. Yeah. But that does sound like either copycat or somebody's found these contraptions in their father's loft.
Or it's somebody that has followed Spring Heel Jack or knew Spring Heel Jack, and Spring Heel Jack, the person, turned around and said, "When I'm gone, can you carry on?"
There was a lot of that back then. There still is now, really. With some.
Yeah. So you know the I can't remember what they call it now, but literally the legend would pass on to the next generation, and that person would then carry it on.
Andy's just said in the chat room, could there be a link with Jack the Ripper? I don't think so, because the more you look into the Jack the Ripper one, he fled to America. I'm sure there's a lot to be said for one of the two guys.
And opened a hotel in central.
I don't know if that was him.
Nah, 100%. Where he just killed people, 100%.
Yeah.
Because there was 2 that escaped to America, 2 suspects that bugged off to America, weren't there? And one of them, the killing stopped over here, and then very, very, very similar motives, similar MOs happened in a small town in America about 2 years after they stopped over here.
Yeah.
So I've always thought, because I followed Jack the Ripper quite closely, and I've always thought it was one of those 2 Americans that went over there. I don't know if it's the one that
opened
the
thing that we watched. We watched a really good documentary.
I'm related to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
No, I'm related to the first ever serial killer. That was it.
It was really good.
That guy who opened up the hotel and was basically murdering anybody, and they all came down to his basement, and he was there with choppers going, ha 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 ha, chopping them up, you know, as you do.
But the thing is, with Spring Heel Jack, there was a suspect, only they could never prove it. And it was an Irishman, the Marquis of Waterford.
Marquis of Waterford?
Yeah. But in 1840, the Lord Mayor, he accused a bunch of young aristocrats. And they reckon it was created after an irresponsible wager. And the popular rumour then started circulating around that the Marquis of Waterford was behind the actual sightings of Spring Heel Jack. Now, technically, if you're an aristocrat, you've got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now you could pay the people to actually develop these little gadgets that he was going to use to commit the prank. The problem is he's proven it. Perhaps
he was the start of MI5's Q section.
He was the original 00.
I say, Q, my contraptions are broken down. Oh, good God, Bond, you've broken the springs again. Terry said in the chat room, if I didn't know better, I'd say you're talking Father Christmas Krampus jumping around threatening children, etc.
That's what I thought when you were talking about how parents use him to...
And Andy's just said the Hellfire Club when you mentioned Ireland, and I straight away when he said Ireland, I was thinking, oh, Hellfire Club. But yeah, if you've got a load of money, you can pay people to make things. You can then turn around and say, "I say, I'll give you a shilling. Yeah. Go and bounce around everywhere."
Well, if you think about it, in Victorian England, or especially 1830 odd, if you're an aristocrat, you can afford to turn around to somebody and say, "I will pay you £10
Hmm.
to
Which back
make
then-
these.
Like 100.
Exactly. That's a hell of a lot of money in modern terms.
Yeah.
You know, if he turns around and says, I'll pay you £10 to create these gadgets, I think you'd get a lot of people jump at the chance.
Well, the blue flame blow, because it wouldn't be because it'd be like one of us. So I reckon it'd be here. That's easily done with some form of
It's
gas.
actually not that easily done unless you have. If it was a pure blue flame, like a Bunsen burner blue flame, that's really difficult. But if he had put something into the flame to make it blue,
Well, this
Exactly.
is why.
Well, you've got that with the alchemists, didn't you? You know, alchemists go back for centuries, so they would have developed a way of knowing which chemicals added to a flame would create a certain color.
Yeah.
We know that natural gas, when it burns under pressure, burns blue.
Well, we know what the Victorians can do. I mean, have you ever seen the film Wild Wild West? I rest my case.
Yeah, 70-foot giant tarantulas.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
they had gas streetlights.
Yeah.
So they weren't unfamiliar with the rules of gas and how gas works, because the street lamps were powered by gas, and you had people walking around with the gas lighters lighting each lamp. They would have known that gas under pressure would have burned blue.
Yeah.
But if he was to have paid the right person, that right person would already know that, and so would be able to create the right gadgets necessary for him to do what he wanted to do.
Q.
oh my god, Dad, I'm so clever.
What have you done?
It was sulfur.
So, add sulfur to it, makes it blue.
I'm so clever.
But actually, some of the reports said there was a smell of sulfur, weren't there?
Yep.
His
Yes.
breath stank of sulfur.
And it wasn't because of a dodgy curry.
Yeah, definitely not a dodgy curry. So there you go. Solved. We have now just solved Spring Heel Jack. There you go.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was solved. It's a possible theory because it was never proved that it was the Marquis. He had been in the news quite frequently during the 30s for drunken brawls, brutal jokes, and vandalism. He was said to do anything for a bet. His irregular behaviour, and his contempt for women earned him the title the Mad Marquis. And it is also known that he was in the London area by the time the first incidences took place. And in 1880, he was named as the perpetrator by E. Cobham Brewer, who said that the Marquis used to amuse himself by springing on travellers unawares to frighten them, and from time to time others have followed his silly example. So could this be his aristocratic friends knowing what he was doing? Oh, I've got to go up to Liverpool next week. I think I'll have a bit of fun while I'm up there. And so they've gone up there, they've done their bit of fun. Then another one's gone off down to Brighton for the weekend or whatever and decided to do something down there.
Perhaps they had a different outfit for Brighton. Just saying.
Well, I mean, like we say, the Brighton sighting, it looked like a bear. So that would be somebody else. Oh, but what's all that going on in Brighton at the time?
I have no idea. No idea. But if you've got different, if the different areas have all got different descriptions, then yeah, copycats or people saying, "I'm going down here. Lend me your stuff."
Yep. But they've never been able to prove it. As far as I can see on here, no one's ever actually they've made allegations, but they've never been able to prove it.
I think if they invented time travel, I think you could quite happily go back with a pair of those kangaroo bouncy things and a couple of portable brulee things. Set them up to a thing up there, and you could go boing.
Yeah. But did you know there has been similar figures or similar people that have done things like that in other countries? Spring Heel Jack appears in Czechoslovakian folklore known as Perak.
All right.
The Spring Man of Prague. And this happened between 1939 and 1945. And there was another one. Oh no, it was actually created from that. It created a cartoon character where he was a superhero fighting the SS. The earliest, which is someone, I think it's called, I thought it was a spell check then, Dewey Trinkas, 1946 film, Perak, or Perak ASS, or Springman and the SS.
You've now got a really good character from Morale, eh? Oh, have you got the Spookanori?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I haven't got a live feed tonight. What I've got to do is we've had an unfortunate situation with the person that won the auction before I went away. She's ended up being very ill, and as a result, I'm going to have to redo the auction because she's not in any fit state to carry on with doing it. So we've said, we'll do the honourable thing. I'm going to send her a copy of the book anyway, because she's actually in a cancer hospital having treatment.
Oh, shit. That's what she's doing.
So I'm going to be sending her a signed book anyway, regardless. And then I'm going to redo the auction.
That's very nice of you. I like
it. Let me know, because I'll come on that as well.
Yeah. So I've got to rearrange it. Once I've got her permission to do so, I'm going to rearrange doing the auction, and then I'll redo it. Because he just only seemed the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Sorry to sound completely off. This is Terry's just put this in here. Have a look.
Yeah.
Thomas Thornycroft.
1885.
Thomas Thornycroft at Tettenhall Towers, an inventor in Wolverhampton, very high in the council, and land invented a number of flying apparatus and pushed many servants. I shouldn't laugh. Pushed many servants to their death off the tower. I say this will bloody work. Strap it on. Goodbye.
Yeah, we'll just see if this works. Whoop.
Damn it.
But the weird thing is, when you look into things like Spring Hill Jack, it does seem to have a follow-on, because when you actually click on the link for Spring Hill Jack, you get other things like Jack the Ripper, the Jersey Devil, Jiangxi, and then you get, mentioned earlier, Krampus, Mothman, Owlman, and one here called the London Monster.
Well, the London Monster. Oh, I saw something about that. I'm sure I put it in here. Hang on.
Did you
But
say
this was
the end of the central line? While I can remember to message.
Epping Forest. It was the end of the central line.
Okay.
Apparently, this pond.
You've got your what's the London Monster?
The London Monster was given to an alleged attacker of women in London between 1788 and 1790. The attacker had a signature behaviour of picarism, the pricking or stabbing of victims with a knife or pin or needle. The first reports of him appeared in 1788. According to the victims, most of them from wealthy families, a large man had followed them, shouted obscenities and stabbed them in the buttocks. Some reports claimed an attacker had knives fastened to his knees. Other accounts reported that he would invite prospective victims to smell a fake nosegay, whatever that is,
Buttonhole.
and then stab them in the face with a spike hiding within the flowers.
Well, that's bloody nice.
It was a bit macabre, isn't it?
They had a few screws loose back then, didn't they?
But in all cases, the alleged assailant would escape before help arrived. Some women were found with their clothes cut, and others had substantial wounds. In the 2 years that he was around, the number of reported victims mounted to more than 50 people. So it's in 2 years he attacked 50 people. And then the press then just moved him on to the London Monster. So rather than any sort of supernatural sort of reasoning behind it, it was just the fact that the contraptions he used were quite ingenious.
It does sound like It really sounds like for about 50 or so years there was basically a mad evil inventor living in central London, and all the posh people go to him, I say, can you do me a damnable device?
Yeah.
Do you not think that all of these, he was nice, but he was kind of a knob, they all sound very much like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which was based back then.
It also sounds like they had the Victorian version of Tinder back then.
Yeah, but I mean, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I mean, you've got, I would say that's more like a split personality going on there. That's basically the story, isn't it, of a split personality, where you've got a sort of a second life.
Yeah,
you've got your everyday life of all the things that you want to do, but then when you're not doing that everyday mundane things, this other side of you comes out, which is the side of the things that you want to do but can't because you're restricted by everyday life. So when you've got that free time,
ballerina at weekends, but we don't tell them.
So when you've got the time, you then go off and you do these things, but you do them in disguise, or you do them so that nobody can actually notice who you are. But I mean, in China, you've got the Jiangshi.
That's right.
The hopping vampire.
Yeah.
And
you stop them by slapping a prayer on their head, and they go like that, and they go boing, boing.
So yeah, I mean, it was known as the Chinese hopping vampire or hopping zombie. It's a type of reanimated corpse in Chinese legends and folklore. And again, according to that, during the Qing dynasty, it moves around by hopping with its arms outstretched. It kills living creatures to absorb their qi, usually at night, while during the day it rests in a coffin or hides in dark places such as caves. Jiangshi legends have inspired a genre of Jiangshi films and literature in Hong Kong and East Asia. So again, a lot of these things, they seem to be sort of bouncing off of one another. The timelines.
Very similar. The Jiangshi has been reported since the 15th, 14th century.
Exactly.
Fact,
but
next week, do you want to carry on with Victorians and then mix in Chinese legends with it as well?
Yeah, you can do, because I mean, this Irish aristocrat, he's got the money to have travelled to China on trade routes, etc., and things like that. So he could have heard of the legends of the Jiangshi and thought, do you know what? I can bring that to London and scare the living daylights out of people for a laugh.
Let's really bugger up on the jumping bit.
Do you know what's crazy? Is if you had your show next, we would have ended by now, and Dad hasn't said alien once.
Well, funny enough, if he went to Kew and he got this person who had all this knowledge to build all these things, and he's got a NASA t-shirt on as well, I'm thinking aliens. There you go.
Yeah, it's the best way of it.
Terry said the one that was attacking people with needles. Do you think he was drugging them with syringes?
Well, if you think about it, if he had enough time to, before help came, rip their clothes and stab them a bunch of times and stuff, maybe they would have been drugged.
Or was he a really shit tattooist?
I mean, he could have been using syringe to inject sedatives so that would calm them down, which would give him the opportunity to drag them away and do further damage or whatever. So, it's one thing that would lead to another, which is another possible theory as to what they were up to. But this is what it's all about, isn't it? Especially in like the paranormal field. That's what we need to do. We need to look at the scientific approach of things to find the answers. And so you cross things out as you go through.
Like putting sulfur in flames to make them blue.
Exactly.
I think we should carry this on next week, if you're all right with that.
Yeah.
I think that.
Big brain time. I'm so proud of myself.
High five your brain. Well, we'll carry this on next week, so I'll finish it now because it's nearly 10:15. But thank you very much for. Get out of the way. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us in the chat room and everything. Anybody's got any questions on the Victorians and their mechanisms and James Bond and Q and aliens? Message us on our Facebook page because it will come straight through to us. Wayne, if you hang on there, I'll speak to you in a minute. Thank you very much for listening. This is Mr. Wayne in his Greg's Cup and NASA t-shirt. This is the Taylor. This is the alien guy. And we'll see you next week.
Hang on, quick. Spook and
Can
Ori.
I end it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Whistle in the Wind and Lady J. All out on Amazon, if I remember rightly.
Yep. Had to get that in quick. All from me personally. Signed copies.
There you go. So buy his book. Thoroughly recommended. I've got a couple on the way as well.
Yes, and you've got a fridge, magnet from Corfu.
Thank you. So we will see you all later.
Bye bye.